We are outside of the Sony event, which just wrapped up.
That's right.
And yeah, it wrapped up.
This is my underwhelmed face.
Yeah, mine too. Sorry to say. It was, about an hour and a half long.
Right.
Saw a number of games.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some Vita stuff.
So let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about The Last of Us, which I think we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's like
extremely cinematic,
survival horror. It's like Uncharted meets The Road.
Right. I mean, I think it's cool that they're doing a survival horror game that doesn't rely completely on supernatural elements. There's like a zombie element to it, like a fungal infection that sort of brings the world to its knees at first. But as you saw, like it's more about fighting against these bandits, conserving your ammo, sort of trying to come up with these scenarios where you can fight back against them with really brutal tactics. But I mean, my only question about this is it's a very deliberately staged gameplay demo. Like, I don't know how that flows when you're playing it yourself, when you're sort of just going through the game.
Right, so many games are very cinematic and very beautiful to watch in these sort of demos, but then you go to play them, and if you try to walk out of bounds, you find that you are very constricted in what you can do.
Exactly.
And this is the kind of game that would make for an amazing open world style gameplay, and it looked open world. I mean, they were kind of walking through and sneaking around. They went through an apartment, which happened to be filled with these bandits who happened to have heads that were easily caved in.
Exactly. Well,
shotguns.
That's part of Naughty Dog's trick. Like, their bag of tricks is making you think that there's a bigger open world out there, but it's actually very much a tunnel. But like the smoke and mirrors part of it is very effective. I think that was by far the strongest demo. We did not see The Last Guardian, though.
No, which is very disconcerting for me. I was really hoping that we would see something that would be an indication that it's still alive. Right. But sadly, there was not even a glimpse of it.
Nope. We also saw reading made fun, kind of. A new thing called Wonder Book, which is an augmented reality game that uses the PlayStation Eye and the PlayStation Move. So you open a book and things appear out of it and you wave a wand and stuff.
Yeah, there was a partnership announced with J.K. Rowling, who was kind enough to give us a paragraph of text to...
Wow, how much do you think that cost?
I can't imagine. She was very thrilled with the possibilities of this new book medium. But basically the idea is you have a large textbook that you can kind of flip open and hold it up so that the PlayStation Eye can see it, and then it's got codes on it like you've seen with the 3DS or any of the other augmented reality things, so that it can tell where the book is, and then it can overlay 3D imagery. And there were things like, you open up one page and there's a pop-up theater that came up at one point where it was talking about the origin of a spell. Mm-hmm. A lot of what we saw ties into the Harry Potter world and the Pottermore world, where people are learning how to cast spells, and there was a lot of spell casting with the Move, one demo that worked mostly, and mostly things looked okay, but it was kind of slow looking.
It's one of those things that you grow progressively less interested in the more you see of it.
And we saw a lot of it.
We did see too much of it, I would say. More than enough for a lifetime. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but I feel like a lot of these augmented reality games it's essentially you staring at a mirror, like seeing yourself, and like there's something there, they put something on top of it, but it's not. It doesn't really immerse you because you're just watching low-resolution footage of yourself,
and you're
behind some crazy stuff.
Reading a book in the mirror does not sound like a very engaging thing. If you've ever read a storybook to a kid and you've had to kind of hold it upside down and present it to them, that's basically how you have to read these things. Hold it upside down and then point at it with your wand. And it just doesn't look like a very comfortable experience.
Right, and like you're tracing motions in the air to create certain spells. Like, that's not a fun mental activity. It's like being told, draw a shape.
Right.
And you draw a shape and something happens. Like, that's not a puzzle, for instance, It's object recognition. So I don't know about that. That was a weak component of it.
I don't either. They also mentioned hopes to make some educational titles about this as well, fitting into the same platform, which seems like a bit of a bold, optimistic statement to make. I can't see that many educational publishers putting their textbooks on this kind of platform.
No, I mean, it looks like it'll be pretty expensive to develop some of that stuff, and I don't think the PlayStation Eye has a resolution high enough to sort of just be able to pick stuff up from the book itself.
I could not imagine reading a textbook, like one paragraph at a time. And I'm also curious about the page turning mechanism, because it actually showed people turning pages, but presumably there aren't that many pages in this augmented reality book, so do you have to turn the page and then flip the thing over and turn it back the other way again? I guess we'll find out when we get
the mechanics of it are a little suspect at this point. But they also talked about PlayStation Suite, which they changed the name of to PlayStation Mobile to reflect a new partnership with HTC.
Yes, HTC is going to be the first non-Sony partner to be able to include PlayStation games or PlayStation certified suite, PlayStation Move Mobile, PlayStation Mobile. Let's try that again.
PlayStation games
PlayStation
with
mobile
virtual
games.
buttons on the screen.
Exactly. They gave a list of publishers who are supported now, or developers who are supported now, and it is a reasonably long list, but ultimately it's a lot of minor players for the most part.
Right.
And the big problem with Switch in the past has been that there just hasn't been that much support, and we still haven't seen that much gamer support. But having this application on HTC devices certainly will open up a world of new customers to all these developers, which certainly should help to kind of prime the pump a little bit on the platform.
Right, and if it means getting more PlayStation 1 classics on more platforms, I think that's ultimately their strategy. That stuff is very popular. It's nostalgia-fueled sales, all over the place. But I think what's really cool is some of the Vita stuff that they showed off today, especially the PlayStation 3 connectivity with the Vita Assassin's Creed 3 game.
Yeah, and that we also saw a couple of different games that offered Vita versus PlayStation 3 playability, so that you can play on your Vita or on your PlayStation 3, or play against people on your PlayStation 3, pick up your save game on the PlayStation Vita, which is, again, something that we've seen before, but it's still nice to see that more and more games are going to be supporting this.
Yeah, so PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale supports cross-play and cross-saving. And one of the cool things that they announced was a crystal white Vita that you can buy in a Assassin's Creed 3 package. So you get the game, I think you get some exclusive DLC,
and
there's a hardware
card.
bundle as well.
Yes, there's a PlayStation 3 bundle and a Vita bundle. We didn't get the Vita price cut that we were hoping to see today.
Nope.
We did get this new bundle. Maybe a white color will help to boost sales a bit.
It is very pretty.
It is.
We like buying pretty things.
We do. Yeah, I haven't bought a Vita yet. Maybe it's time. Although I'm not the hugest fan of Assassin's Creed either, so I don't know that it's necessarily the bundle for me.
Well, there's 2 games coming out now, so maybe one of those 2 will convince you to buy a PlayStation object of some kind.
So shall we talk about All-Stars, which to me looks... I couldn't imagine it looking any more like Super Smash Brothers other than the characters.
Well, I actually find it a little more difficult to read than Smash Brothers, because Smash Brothers has a lot of bright colors and the characters stand out really well.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters in the Sony lineup are darker and blend into the background a little bit more. So it's a little harder to follow the chaos on screen. But I think they have a good lineup so far, and it's different in the sense that you don't knock people out of the stage. You basically have to get kills with a special attack.
Within the stage. And there were things, there was like a meat grinder, and there was a Hydra that came out, and so there were plenty of, opportunities to die, I should say. And it was also a bit more mature, too, than Super Smash Brothers, of course.
Exactly.
But still, this is very, cartoony and child-friendly. We saw a Fat Princess in there bouncing around. There was a Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal, but even he looked a little bit more cartoony than he does in the Twisted Metal series.
Well, there's a fun blend of different franchises. Like the Smash Brothers levels are usually very strictly, one franchise at a time, whereas in the background levels of these have elements from God of War, and it might have stuff from, Uncharted or whatever, mixing into the same stage. So like they're not afraid to mix and match things.
Is that a good thing though?
I think it makes it funnier. I think it makes it more fun. I mean, you might as well take advantage of all these characters being in the same place. Why not?
And there will be lots of characters, as you predicted. It sounds like they are going to drag. Yes, we saw a Drake, I think, was one, and then
Nathan Drake and the Big Daddy from BioShock.
The Big Daddy from BioShock as well. So they are reaching out to the third parties to get all these characters in there. Very deep into the third parties.
Right.
But they said in the coming months we can expect many more announcements.
Oh yes, one at a time.
So I think we'll be. It'll be a while before we see everything out of there. What else? What else?
Well, I mean, we could go back to talk about the Wonderbook stuff because everyone loves hearing about Wonderbook.
Yes, and they did talk about it for
because
a very
that was
long time
about half of the presentation.
It seemed that way. We didn't see any PowerPoints today. Typically Sony goes through lots of bar charts and graphs to show their sales. We didn't see any of those at all today.
There was a little bit about 80% of people using PlayStation 3s being connected, PlayStations and Vitas being online. But I mean, not too much that we didn't know before.
Yeah.
They did focus on God of War Ascension, the single-player content of that, and that was pretty much a God of War game. Like, I mean, I thought that was pretty underwhelming.
There was a lot of brutal combat, dudes getting their heads ripped off, and lots of knives being stuck into uncomfortable places. But ultimately, it all looks very traditional.
Right, great-looking graphics and so forth. But have you noticed the trend that if it's a PlayStation-exclusive game, Ellen Page is in it?
I did notice that.
So she's kind of in Last of Us, not quite, but she's definitely in a game called Beyond Two Souls, period.
Which is like a new generation Heavy Rain kind of title, where a very cinematic title, very beautiful title, almost like watching a movie, a semi-interactive movie. Maybe, hopefully, it'll be a little bit more interactive than Heavy Rain was.
Right.
But the developer intrigued us by asking the question of what happens after we die. Basically, it said that if we play the life of Jodie well, we might find out.
Well, I was very close to finding out what happens when you die during that Wonderbook presentation, which I will repeatedly go back to because it was so awful. Well, you know what's interesting about that is like they didn't really show what kind of game it was. I mean, they showed like the amazing facial expressions of the characters. They've really refined their technology and the acting. We have American actors now. Not everyone sounds French anymore, which is nice. And Ellen Page looks like she's going to pull the role off. I mean, they chose an odd scene. She didn't really say much in it.
Yeah, it was a very slow scene for the most part of Ellen sitting there in a sheriff's office, and then he's kind of trying to get her to talk, and then she uses her mind to send a coffee mug across the room.
I want to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then a SWAT team comes in, and just as it's going to get good, it fades to black.
Right, well, at least it's not like every other game trailer where a thing comes flying at your face and then it cuts away to the title screen.
That's true.
But, you know, it seems like they're implying a supernatural element to it, like she's a troubled youth with some kind of, you know, mysterious background or whatever. But we couldn't tell what kind of game it was. It could be a bunch of QTEs. It could be a bunch of cuties. Who knows?
Yeah, there was some action gameplay that they showed later in kind of a quick montage of lots of fire and pyrotechnics, and she reminded me a little bit of Jack. Is it Jack from Mass Effect?
Mass Effect, yes.
Shaven head, same sort of thing. So
more clothes, though.
More clothes, indeed, more clothes. So yeah, it remains to be seen exactly what the gameplay is going to look like, but from a technology standpoint, it certainly looks very good. But this is, again, current generation hardware.
Right. We're seeing that PlayStation 3 being squeezed for everything it's got.
All
not a single
cores,
mention of next gen.
Yeah, not a hint. And it was an odd conclusion from Jack Tretton at the end. He spent a lot of time talking about being here for 17 years. And he said that, you know, as E3 winds down, he said at one point, which is very odd because E3 hasn't begun yet.
It's winding down on that stage, like it was winding down for them.
So Sony's just done. They're
they
just
going
to
disassemble stuff and get out of here.
Just drop the mic and walk away. Yeah, there's going to be this big empty space in the show floor tomorrow where Sony's supposed to be, but no actual games. Just the AR textbook, but with no actual PlayStation Eye to play it on, which perhaps is for the best.
Right, exactly. I mean, I felt like they were leading up to an announcement. Like Andrew House came out and he was like, "But we're always thinking of the future and doing great stuff with the future." So, I'm done.
Here's Jack. And then Jack said the best is yet to come, which is
apparently
something that
next year.
Companies always like to say when they know that they're disappointing you, because it's like, hey, sorry, this kind of sucked, but don't worry, there's more coming. And I heard 5,600 people here tonight, which is pretty outrageous.
Really?
And a large number of them were basically PlayStation Network members who were invited to show up. Some of whom camped out overnight. They came here at 4 o'clock yesterday to be here. So Sony was obviously, you know, you could look at this as a great way for Sony to kind of give back to the fans, which it is. But you can also pessimistically say this is Sony maybe filling the stands with people who are going to cheer and scream loudly at the things that maybe we might not be so excited about.
Right,
like,
we're way
for example,
too polite for that.
Augmented reality books.
Plus, I feel bad about cheering and hollering every time someone dies a horrible death on screen. as we've been talking about the violent games this year.
Yeah.
Last of Us is pretty brutal. So.
It is very brutal. Very calm and serene, but yet alternatingly
and we
very
got to see
brutal.
Elephant's brains.
Yes, that was probably the best part of the God of War demo. He cut a dude's head open and took his brain out. And the brain was pulsing, I noticed as well, which is an odd thing. I didn't think brains
Who needs
pulse.
next-gen technology when you can render a brain like that?
Well, anything else from Sony we should talk about other than our yearning disappointment?
Well, I'd actually ask you if you would like to start a podcast with me about Wonderbook.
A podcast about Wonderbook?
Yeah, I'm thinking an episode a day.
I think that's probably good. We should probably register a subdomain for that, like wonderbook.joystiq.com maybe?
Right, let's do it.
That'd be good. Yeah, you can subscribe to the RSS if you like to at wonderbook.joystiq.com/rss.xml. Expect many updates over the course of the next couple of years, maybe. No, I think on second thought I'm going to decline on that. I just don't think there's a market there.
I tried.
Successful.
They tried.
They did try very hard. All right, so that's it for Sony. I think it's getting dark here. We're going to wrap things up, and tomorrow morning, the last of the big pre-E3 shows, Nintendo. And there better be some new hardware there, or else I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yes, I think that'll be next-gen stuff. We will see the Wii U 2. Finally.
That's a good question. Is the Wii U next-gen, or is the Wii U just more of the same gen?
Well, it's not a technological leap, is it? So I feel like it's kind of like current gen, because it'll support a lot of games that are already out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's why they brought out that hardcore controller. But, you know, we'll see.
So current gen graphics, but next gen gameplay?
No.
No. Okay. Well, we'll find out tomorrow morning when we've got the Nintendo event. That I believe is 10 o'clock.
What time
Pacific.
is that?
I think is it 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock Pacific?
It starts at 9, I think.
I think it's 9 o'clock Pacific, so that'd be roughly noon Eastern time if you are in the East Coast. And we will be back for another live broadcast before that. And then, of course, the show proper kicks off after that. And then things get really exciting.
And then we've learned what happens when you die.
Thanks to Jody. All right, I think we're going to wrap things up. I'm Tim Stevens, Editor-in-Chief of Engadget.
This is Louis Kitzman, Editor-in-Chief of Joystiq.
And we are live from E3. Join us tomorrow for the Nintendo pre-show broadcast.